Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Girl Boss Method podcast, hosted by myself, Richu Brass. So, with tonight's topic, this is going to be it's part of our educational series. And today's topic is all about muscle. Let's go to it. Understanding muscle engagement and exercise effectiveness. So this was actually a topic request from one of the girls inside the program. She was really keen to understand what muscles she should be working during exercises. So we've gone over some of this together on like a one-to-one setting. So she's filmed exercises for me, and I've given her some coaching and everything on those exercises. We've also talked about some of the exercises and how they should feel, and I've also filmed some alternative setups for her as well. But we thought that it might be a good idea to actually have this set up as a group training, because I'm sure some of you out of there may have some questions about this, and maybe you're not sure about how to ask about this. So when it comes to muscle engagement, it's an interesting one, because ideally you'd like to think that we can engage muscles, but that is very subjective, because some people out there may not actually be able to feel muscles working. It could be that they're not quite, when you are learning an exercise, sometimes your brain is focused on the movement itself and not necessarily understanding or knowing how to feel a muscle. So especially when we start working out, or for those of you that are new to exercise, it's almost the act of learning the skill that comes first before thinking about the muscle. So thinking about, the skill, the technique, the position, but understanding muscle engagement might help you understand when a muscle is fatiguing, or when a muscle is feeling too overloaded, or actually understanding that you are loading a muscle adequately. And this is it's part of your journey, basically learning about how your body works as well, and also finding that point in tune. It's not something that someone can it's a very difficult thing to explain, but I think it can be quite helpful thinking about the muscles that you're working. Maybe some of you out there may have heard of the term mind muscle connection. I think there's definitely something in that phrase itself, but like using, thinking about the muscle in the exercise and using your mind to kind of take you there. If we're thinking about how we might work in like Pilates, for example, there's definitely a lot more mind muscle connection. It's that holistic connection to the exercise that we're doing. And so for this training today, this is going to be all about how we would apply that to the gym. So yes, in this presentation, we will delve into the major muscle groups and the exercises that target them effectively. We will explore the importance of proper form, consistency, and other factors that will influence the effectiveness of your workout. So we'll always take it back to, what's the intention of the workout or your programming. Are you looking at sort of trying to build lean muscle tissue? All these things will have an effect on our progress. Okay, so major muscle groups. Well, firstly, let's start by understanding the major muscle groups in the human body. So I'll break it down for you like this. Generally, in the physio or anatomy world, or the physiology of all of it, we'll kind of break up muscles into mobilizers, moving muscles, and our stabilizers, which are more of our like control muscles. So we're going to be focusing on our mobilizers because these are the muscles that are responsible for all the bigger movements that we do. And they're the muscles where we can create the most amount of physical change in terms of trying to create muscle building, or another fun term that you might want to write down, hypertrophy as well. So creating growth within these muscles. Okay, so we'll start off with the chest muscles, the pectorals. So I've got a lovely image here. I haven't done this wonderful anatomy image for all the muscles, but just thought we'd start off with this one. So the pecs are obviously your big muscles. You've got your pec major and you've got your pec minor as well, which are slightly smaller. Now, these muscles are our push muscles, and we're thinking about breaking up our sessions into push, pull, and legs. You may have seen that sort of format. The pushing muscles are literally, as we've said, so we're thinking bench press. So that's a pushing movement. We've got push ups or press ups and flies, for example. Now, no exercise is truly going to work one specific muscle itself. Like, yes, we can. I guess there's some untruth in there in my statement, but there will always be muscles. Although we're focusing on one muscle group, there will always be assistive muscles working. So whether that is trying to keep the muscles, stabilizing the body, there'll be muscles being involved stabilizing the body, and there'll be muscles that, help to create some balance anyway. I really promise not to confuse you with this one. But anyway, when we are doing these chest exercises, we want to feel that stretch and that contraction in those chest muscles and maintain stable form as well. These are some exercises here on screen. So 3 different ways that we've mentioned of working your chest muscles. So we've got our push-ups, we've got our barbell press, and we have our resistance machine press. Now you can obviously use dumbbells as well. We can use cable machines. There's so many different ways of working these muscles. One of the things that I want to point out is that when you are doing your chest, anything where your elbows are around that sort of, bent elbow position, depending on where you put the elbows, you can try and create a different angle of pull around the pecs itself. And also you'll add in some assistive muscles. So like your triceps will be working. They also work in a push format. So I'm going to go back to the press up here, just because I think this is just such a good example. See how she's got her elbows flared out. She'll be focusing on the chest, and there will be some work on a bit around the shoulders there, the front of the shoulders. Now, if she was to do this press up and angle her elbows slightly closer in line with her body and in line with her torso, she will more likely start to recruit more of the triceps. Okay, so that's the muscle on the backs of the arms. Okay, back muscles. So I've only got a picture here of your lats. So your lats are like great big wings that are on the, you've got a back muscle here, right here, basically. And then we're looking at like rhomboids as well, because these are some great, main muscle groups that we might work. Now this, if you can see my cursor here, you can see how my blue cursor kind of comes up and down. This will be your traps. Your rhomboids will sit underneath the center of this area and in between your shoulder blades. So when you're doing any rowing movements, so that's what we call a horizontal pull, you know, where anything where you are pulling from in front of you and you're pushing the elbow sort of towards or past your torso, any rowing like movements, you're going to be yes, you'll be focusing on some lats there, but you will be focusing on some rhomboids as well. And to be fair, there'll be lots of muscles that are working around the back. And I like to call this area the back line because it's everywhere along the back. Okay. So we are thinking in some ways rear delts or back of the shoulder area as well can be affected. And then obviously we've got things like, you know, your upper back, your lower back, etc. We could literally talk on this topic forever, and I promise I'm not going to do that for you. Okay. So yes, just for purposes of this training, we're looking at a horizontal pull is your row, your vertical pull is your like pull up or your pull down. Deadlifts also involve the back here as well. I wouldn't call them the main mover in a deadlift. And a deadlift is a really interesting exercise because your deadlift, it comes up in so many different areas. Like for me, deadlift can be core, it can be quads, it can be glutes, it can be back muscles, it can be so much. And ideally, yes, when we are thinking about back muscles, you want to try and keep your back straight and not rock it backwards and forwards, okay, to truly try and engage those lats and rhomboids. So we've put a couple of videos here. So top left one here, this is a variation of a pull down or a lat pull down. And you can see that the girl has got her fingers wrapped around facing her. So that would be like an underhand grip. And that'll be really great at, you know, working in to those lats. And then here, down here on the bottom right, we've got a rowing exercise. Here are some just, you know, deadlifts again. Now you can see that these won't necessarily be predominantly back. Again, it's all about your pulling technique. There will be a great deal of the quads and the glutes, you know, the legs overall working. And if we have a look at the girl on the bottom right-hand side, you can see that she's actually turned her feet out and she's got a wider stance. It's not easy getting all the variations here, but she'll actually be working her inner thighs quite a bit on this one as well. That won't be for everyone, but definitely if you're a beginner, you might feel those inner thighs working a bit more on that side as on that exercise as well. But yeah, lots of lateral glute or like side booty going on as well. Oh, we've gone backwards. All right. Right, moving on, shoulders. Okay. How much are you loving the fact that we've got loads of female pictures or females lifting and they all look absolutely amazing? Loving the muscles. Okay. So a military press is ideally, we call that one a military press when we're using a barbell, and we'll kind of refer shoulder press when we are using dumbbells. We've got other variations of exercises as well for the shoulders. So you've got lateral raises where your arms come out to the side, and front raises where they'll come out to the front. Again, arguably rear delt, which is the back of the shoulders. Again, you could do a fly for this one, a reverse fly. You could lean onto your front and lift up for a raise like that as well. And again, some people might put that in their like back day, or some people might put it in their shoulder day. The point is, when you are working on a routine, I think we like full body days, we like push days, we like pull days, we like upper body days, we like mixing it up. Some people still do the whole let's only work this muscle group per day. I don't think that's beneficial for everybody out there. Some people have done it for years and it works for them fine. But for most of you ladies, we really do want to try and focus on, you know, getting a range of more muscles or more parts of your body working. I don't think anyone on this program, I certainly am not training 6-7 days a week. Excuse me. Yeah. So, you know, if we're looking at that nice sweet spot of, I always call the sweet spot 4 days or 3 to 4 days, then, you know, we're looking at push-pull legs or upper and lower or total body. Okay, and here are some demonstrations now. So we've got the girl, two girls, one's doing her lateral raises, standing lateral raises, and one's doing her shoulder press. Absolutely motivating, such motivational videos here. I'm loving it. Moving on to the lower part of your body. And for some of you, this might be your favorite parts of the body to train. Especially for us ladies, we tend to do better at lower body exercises. We tend to be stronger in our legs. And I think we also see the most amount of changes in our legs than any other part as well of our body. I know that when I first started my fitness training or my fitness journey, sort of in the gym setting, I absolutely used to love squatting and lunging and all of that stuff. I used to absolutely love it. So when we're thinking about the legs, just for this purpose here, just to kind of break things up a bit, I'm going to try and refer to quadriceps, which are your your thighs at the front, your hamstrings, which are at the back of your thigh, and your calves. Okay. So if we want to try and give some favoritism of these muscles or these exercises to various parts of your body, squats, quadriceps, we'll be looking at squats, leg press. Again, lunges as well. Hamstrings, be thinking more specifically about leg curls, deadlifts, stiff deadlifts, various different variations of deadlifts anyway, and calf raises. There are so many alternatives to these exercises, and there are so many names for all the different variations. So it's always us trying to find out what's the most appropriate for you. Now you'll see that we've got a girl who's just been squatting body weight, and then we've got a girl using a barbell. Now you'll notice that both these girls actually do sit down quite low, but not everybody's anatomy is going to allow them to do that. There'll be uncomfortable parts of a movement or uncomfortable ranges of a movement. So there's various different things that we can use to try and help our squats, for example. For myself, I always like to have my heels slightly elevated when I squat, because I just feel like I get more working on my legs. Otherwise, for me, I've got quite a tendency, I've got quite a curve in my lower back or lordotic posture. My back arches a bit more. You could say that that's like, just my natural body type. But sometimes for me, if I get in and I squat, I could almost feel it in my back first. So by elevating my heels, that helps me feel it a little bit more on like my quads, for example. And actually there are some great variations that we can do with squats. So we've got the body weight, the barbell, dumbbells are great. Again, dumbbells you can hold like a goblet squat or a kettlebell up, just sort of around your chest. You can have them down by your sides. You can use the squat variation in conjunction with arm movements as well. There's so much that you can do. And one of my favorites that I love to use personally and in programming is the box squat. So I haven't got a video or a picture of it here, but ideally when you are sitting down, you will have the box at sort of, you know, again, thinking about your comfortable range, we'll have it so that you sit onto the box and almost like touch the box with your bum and then stand up, almost like the end of your comfortable range. And then we'll focus on, because for most people, the bottom part of a squat is the hardest to get out of. We call it the hole, right? It's quite hard. Okay, moving on, enough of squats. Lunges are an interesting one, because lunges, you've got walking lunges, you've got reverse lunges, you've got forward lunges, you've got what we used to call static lunges, but we now are more familiarized to calling split squats, because effectively that's what it is, because both your feet are static on the ground. A lunge has now been seen more of a movement where you are moving off one foot to the other, or reverse, etc. So with all the different variations of split squats or lunges, the way that we angle our torso, so if we are, hopefully you can see my screen, if we are straight and then we lean slightly further forward with our torso over the front foot, you know, how far your knee comes over your foot itself, or over your toes, all those things can create biases. So yes, there'll be quads working, but actually you'll find that you can work your glutes more, or you might find some involvement from the hamstrings as well. So there's so much going on that, yes, it's great to focus on that mind muscle connection. I feel like we've almost moved away from that slightly in this training, but that mind muscle connection sometimes can only take you so far, and just think about focusing on one thing only. We're going to talk about the leg press. This girl here's got her feet high and wide. With that, it's more going to be focused on like hamstrings and outer glutes. But then if you are structurally, if you've got tight inner thigh muscles or tight adductors, you might feel a little bit of a pull there. But again, that's going to be individualized and based, you know, for example, if you've got more of a restrictive adductor area. How many of us walk around using our adductors? Like, okay, yes, we do. That sounds silly, but we don't actively use them, thinking about them. So sometimes our adductors don't really get that full length and that full stretch. And doing like a lunge variation or even a leg press, you can start to you might even feel them more than you might normally in other exercises. So going back to that, if we have a more narrower foot position and slightly lower, that could again work more of your quads. And again, I would also arguably, I'll say that glutes, yes, glutes work because the glutes are going to be stretched here, but will you always feel them? Some people, yes, and some people, no. I definitely feel them. I feel them in both ranges. If I go for a high and wide, or I go for a narrow, parallel sort of position, you know, feet in line with hips, etc., I'll feel my glutes all the time. But yeah, that's just how I'm made. Excuse me. Okay. Right. So we've got a couple of hamstringy. I just put some hamstring stuff in here. The calves I didn't bother with, because the calf raises, you know, seated calf raise, standing calf raise. I feel like as ladies, we don't really train our calves as much, but it's so important to train them. So even if that's just doing body weight as well, it's really important for you to work through the full range of your ankles as well. Now, I've got the leg curl up here on the top left, and you'll notice the girl's got her heels flexed. Now, if you were to have them pointed, some people might find that their calves are working a little bit more, but So ideally, you just want to try and not actively flex through those ankles and make them stretched out like this, but you want to think about just drawing them in loosely into that position and then really focusing on the hamstring. This, I think, is definitely where the mind-muscle connection is so important. And also something called tempo and like eccentric control. So right now, the girl's started at the top of the position. She's got her her lower shin, her knees are flexed as much as she can. Okay, so basically the pad's pretty much touching her bum. Now, as she straightens her legs, that's when she's going to be controlling the weight. If she just lets gravity do its thing and she just extends her knees and straightens her legs, she's not really going to have control. And then she's going to be thrusting, almost throwing the movement back up to knee flexed position. So ideally what we want to do in this scenario is, yes, squeeze at the top. We can also squeeze at the top and use some like holds. So you can hold for like 2 to 3 counts. And then as you straighten those legs, really think about controlling that weight down and try, if you can, not to fully straighten your knees. Keep a small little knee bend or a little smile behind the kneecap, and then go back up into squeezing. And I would actually even say maybe even try dropping the weight and just focusing on that mind to muscle connection. And then we just got some more deadlift variations here. So yes, I think the reason why we put this one in here is I'm sort of trying to explain the difference between deadlifts. So this would be like a stiff leg deadlift or an RDL, but this would be more of a hamstring focused one. Yes, the knees are slightly flexed, but her legs are almost straight and she's pushing her hips back and coming down with her arms. So she's focusing more on that hamstring lengthening. Just side note here, do not put your toes up on anything. You might see that on Instagram. Please don't do it. Keep your feet flat and focus on the range that the movement allows you to have. If it feels easy, I'm afraid you're going to have to pick up heavier weights and again, control the movement. Down here on the bottom left, not sure if we can see this one as good, but she's creating slightly more knee flexion, more of a knee bend. Her body's coming down, her torso is coming down to horizontal, and she's really pushing her bum behind her, creating that stretch on her glutes. So that's going to be more of a glute focused exercise. And just saying that, trying to think about a muscle when it's in the most stretched position to create that mind muscle connection is actually really, really hard. So generally when we're thinking about squeezing a muscle, it will be easier when the load is allowing the muscle to shorten, and sort of, at the shortened range, and then we can squeeze that. So basically, in an RDL, your glutes, the most amount of load tension is going to be when the glutes are stretched, not necessarily when they're squeezed and you're standing up tall. It's going to be when you're sticking your bum behind you. Arms. Okay. All right. So the arms, you've got biceps and you've got triceps. So I've put a couple of exercises in here, bicep curls, hammer curls. I'll tell you the difference between those. So we've got tricep dips. We should all know what tricep dips are. We've all probably been doing tricep dips since we were at school as kids. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you hated them, but I love a tricep dip. Absolutely. They're good fun. I think when you can really get the hang of them and you can get that strength, they're great. And then we got tricep extensions. So tricep extension, if you can see me there, I'm doing a little demo. It's basically extending at the elbow. Okay. Right. Here we go. So a man made the slide. Okay. It's because I couldn't find a woman doing a hammer curl. Anyway, you'll notice that with the hammer curl, the thumb is actually facing upwards. So you're actually rotating the wrist so that the knuckles are, well, the thumb's on top, basically, knuckles facing for pointing ahead of you. And in that position, that's what you're leading with, is the thumb is leading the movement as you extend and bend the arms. With a bicep curl, again, so many variations of these. You're in a more supinated grip, which means that your palms, if you were to open out your palms, you'd be able to see your palms. Okay. And so when you close them, your thumb is actually just on the outer of your body, the outer side, and then you're sort of bending and stretching again. There are, again, so many different variations. So just keep, mindful of that. Okay, core. So abdominals and obliques. Okay. So we've got the rectus abdominis, which is basically the six-pack abs. This is going to be working anytime you create trunk flexion, or you basically flex your spine. So I want you to think it's more of that crunchy, again, don't push at your head here, but it's anything where you're flexing the spine. Okay, so you're crunching. So that can involve crunches from the upper body, or even anything where, like, leg raises as well. Leg raises, maybe with leg raises with a bent knee, so that you're really thinking about curling your bum under. You're creating that spinal flexion. Obliques, anything like the Russian twists, wood chops. So that's actually like using the cable for this one. Palloff press as well. That one, yes, obliques, but again, in more of a stabilizing manner. And then we've got transverse abdominals, which are your deep abs. Okay. And so with this, we would look at things like planks, if I'm honest, or maybe, you can actually work your TVA at your transverse abdominals at a very low level. It's almost, again, it's that trying to create strong trunk stability, keeping the spine still, keeping your body still, and working your abs. So yes, things like planks, but guess what? You can also do toe taps, and work that muscle as well. So it's just, again, there's definitely a lot more mind to muscle connection when we're thinking about core. Again, it doesn't work for everyone. Everything is very subjective. Right. Okay, glutes, the favorite. You've probably been waiting for this one. I know you have been waiting to learn. Okay, so glutes, ideally, yes, glutes are the big muscles of your bum. You're going to work your squats. You're going to have your glutes working in a more stretched position, because that's where the tension or the load is going to be. Deadlifts, again, will be more stretched. Glute bridges, they'll be more shortened as you're pushing up, and that's where the low tension is. Same with hip thrusts, back extensions, and kickbacks. So you'll notice, this is such a nice picture, but bless her. Now she's got great hip. So when you're working the glutes, it's anything where your hip is, when we're thinking about glute max, this is the big muscles of the glute. Anything where your hip is extending, your hips opening out, so your glutes are working in this hip extension position. Do not try and arch your back to create more movement. Try not to twist your pelvis either. And then I think we're probably at some point going to do a whole session on glutes. Definitely. That would just be so fun. Yeah. And then obviously you've got your hip thrusts as well. Nice little demo here. You want to make sure that, core is nice and tight, trunk is stable. And as you're pushing up, you're not moving your neck to create movement, and you're not overarching your back. You want to try and keep all that tension on your glutes. And it's interesting actually, because in the hip thrust, I think there is, there's different foot positions that might create a bias in some areas. So some people, again, it depends on people's anatomy, but this is where I don't feel like every exercise is for you. It's about finding out what works for you, and we can discuss that together. But some people might feel like their quads are overworking in their glutes. So again, it could just be that where they've put their feet, you want to make sure that you've got that nice vertical knee to ankle shin position. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say this again. Yes, mind muscle, thinking about that connection, thinking about the effectiveness of all of that. What comes first is proper form. Proper form, correct form is going to minimize the risk of injury. It's going to ensure that the intended muscles are engaged. So even if you cannot feel it, getting the form right first will help you. Again, if you're unsure, take a video, send me the video. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at what we can change. I definitely, next year, I think, just if you're watching this back, this is November 23, but I definitely think we're going to try and get the first Girl Boss in-person training session going, just like for a meetup. I just think it's going to be amazing. Some of you might not know, but I've got a long history of coaching gymnastics. Everything is all about technique. When you are teaching and you are doing, so I was a coach for donkey's years, for a long time. And I coached from like kids to, I've coached adults as well. I've coached elite, like dancers, you're artistic. So your floor, vault, bars, beam, lots of different levels, recreational and elite there. And yeah, so I'm very hot on technique and form, definitely, so I've spent a lot of time looking at that sort of stuff, and transferably as well in the gym as well. I just love looking at form and just trying to tweak things. So yeah, I would love that in-person session. We're going to get that and make that happen at some stage. Okay. So, for example, common mistake might be arching your back during your squat. And again, I did talk about this earlier. You might end up working your lower back a bit more than actually targeting your legs. So I know that for me, I like to have a little heel lift. So I have actually, so whether that's putting my feet on some small weight plates, or if it's wearing I've got lifters, CrossFit lifter shoes. So they're hard soled shoes, and I highly recommend them. You might have heard the whole thing of people having like Converse to train in. Converse are flat, but that doesn't work for everyone. Some people do need that heel lift. Can never get enough water. Right. So then we're thinking about what actually makes the exercise effective. Well, at the top of all of this, exercise effectiveness is going to be achieved through progressive overload. If you haven't watched that video, go back through the app, go and have a look back through the education and have a look at the progressive overload lecture. Education topics going to be great. Well, it will teach you all about what progressive overload is and how to actually apply it to your workouts. So if we are in the gym and we're doing, well, actually, if you're at home and you're doing home workouts and you've only got access to a set of 4 kilo dumbbells, A, that's going to feel too hard on some exercises, and B, it's just going to feel like nothing on some of the others. And, there might come a time, and I've seen this time and time again, actually, with some of you, You'll start out at home, and then you realize that you actually need to go to the gym to get that progressive overload. So it's not just about going through the motions and doing the exercise. It's actually being able to challenge your muscles as they adapt, and they grow stronger, but as they adapt to the stimulus as well. It's so important. All right, finally, woohoo, my 15 minutes of fame. Okay, real results take time, consistency, sleep, recovery. They consider lifestyle factors, and they heavily are, they're heavily reliant on nutritional factors as well, and how we're adapting our nutrition. So do not forget that. If you want to build lean muscle tissue, and you want to have fat loss, and you want to get that nice lean physique, you are really going to have to focus on nutrition, sleep, recovery. There's so much that goes into it. Yes, progressive overload. Yes, consistency. Do not expect results to happen fast. And just for this, I've got a picture up of me here. On this left picture, believe it or not, I was a PT then as well. And I was already on a fitness journey. I put on quite a bit of weight actually after uni. And I'd sort of kind of got to a stage, I think this may have been like 2015. And this is in the PT office of a gym that I was working at the time. And I was training, but, and I was addressing my nutrition, but it took time. And the one on the right, it is the absolute other end of the scale. It's very extreme, but that was me preparing for one of my bodybuilding competitions. And I believe that this picture on the right is 2018. So there's actually 3 years between these pictures, but there's a whole lot more history and groundwork done on the left picture. So before this was even taken, there's so much work that's been done. I've been working consistently in the gym for years. So it takes time, patience, trust the process. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. Okay, so here we go again. Factors influencing effectiveness. Several factors influence the effectiveness of your exercise. So nutrition, proper fuel for muscle growth, rest and sleep, recovery, days off. Muscles need time to recover and go. And it's time and time again. When you start a fitness program, don't come in saying, I want to work 7 days a week, because you actually need to rest as well. You need time for your muscles to recover and grow. When we are training and we're loading our muscles, we are actually causing micro damage or micro tears within the fibers. We are creating a stimulus that the body needs to go and fuel these zones, these muscle fibers, and we get stronger and we grow. Yeah. So it takes time and consistency. Regular workouts yield results. Okay. So don't expect things I've been working on this same thing for a month now. Why are my glutes not bigger? Listen, girl, you have to make sure that you've been making those regular workouts. You've been consistent with your training, with your nutrition, and it takes time. So trust the process. Right. And that's, as I can say, that's it from me, guys. So this is what we do on the program. So it's been a Monday night session, Monday at 8 p.m. And then we do, so this will go up on the app. Well, you guys will watch it back. And for those of you that are listening in to the podcast, we actually revisit on a Friday. So we do that on a Friday at 6:30. We do like a Q&A on the live. So if there's things that I've missed on this topic, the ladies can come back and ask me questions about them. So if they've watched it back or they watched it live and they've replied some of it, they can come back and feedback as well. And it's just, yeah, it's the chance for us to check in and catch up as well. So thank you so much for listening to me on the Girl Boss Method podcast. And if you would like to send me a DM and find out more about the program and how it all works, you can find me on Instagram. Send me a DM at Richu Bra. I'll spell that out for you. That is spelled RICHUBRAR. And we'll see you here next time.